Welcome to Team Historical. Your journey through the epic stories of the past begins now.
All right, let's dive into the single biggest, deadliest conflict in all of human history, the Second World War. It's a story that completely changed our planet, and honestly, to understand the world we live in today, you've got to understand how this war happened. To really get the scale of this, you have to start with this number. Somewhere between 70 and 85 million people lost their lives. That's not just soldiers, that's civilians too. It's a number so huge, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. But it's why the stakes were so incredibly high. So that's the big question, isn't it? A catastrophe this massive doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's got deep, complicated roots. So let's rewind and see exactly how those seeds were planted. You know, to find the real start of World War II, we actually have to go back to the end of World War I. The so-called peace that ended one war pretty much lit the fuse for the next one. After World War I, Germany was in a really bad place. The Treaty of Versailles hit them hard. Their military was basically dismantled, their economy was a wreck because of massive war payments, and this created this deep, simmering anger and national humiliation across the country. And that feeling of resentment, well, it was the perfect fuel for a fire. And right into that perfect storm of anger and frustration stepped Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party. They were masters at channeling that public rage, pointing fingers, and promising to make Germany strong and proud again. It was a simple, powerful message that, tragically, a lot of people were ready to hear. Okay, so you've got all this tension building inside Germany. How in the world did that explode into a global war? Well, let's look at the chain of events that set the entire world on fire. A huge part of Germany's early, terrifying success came down to this new idea, blitzkrieg. It literally means lightning war. The whole strategy was to hit the enemy with absolutely everything you had, tanks, planes, all at once, to just smash through their defenses and cause total chaos before they could even figure out what was happening. And on September 1st, 1939, that's exactly what they unleashed on Poland. That invasion was the final straw. Britain and France had a treaty with Poland, and they honored it. They declared war on Germany, and just like that, the Second World War had officially begun. So almost immediately, the world split into two massive teams. On one side, you had the Axis powers, the main players being Germany, Italy, and Japan, and against them, you had the Allied powers, this huge coalition that would grow to include the United Kingdom, France, and later the Soviet Union, the United States, China, and many, many others. And believe me, when we say World War, we really mean it. This thing was fought on a scale humanity had never seen before. You had massive battles raging across Europe, huge naval fights all over the Pacific Ocean, and brutal desert campaigns in North Africa. It was a truly global conflict. For the first couple of years, it seemed like the Axis powers were just unstoppable. They were winning everywhere. But then, slowly but surely, the momentum started to shift. The tide began to turn. You can really point to three critical moments that changed everything. Out in the Pacific, you have the Battle of Midway, where the US Navy dealt a crushing blow to Japan, stopping their expansion in its tracks. Then in Europe, the horrific Battle of Stalingrad ended in a total disaster for the German army. And finally, there was D-Day in 1944, when the Allies landed in France, opening up a massive new front that Germany just couldn't handle. So these weren't just separate wins, they were a total game changer. Together, they completely flipped the script of the war. From this point on, the Axis was on the back foot, constantly being pushed back. The end was now finally in sight. But winning this war, man, it came at a cost that is just staggering to think about, both in terms of human life and the terrifying new ways that were invented to take it. The war was like a pressure cooker for technology. We saw the rise of powerful tanks and even the very first fighter jets. It proved that aircraft carriers were the new kings of the sea. But it also gave us things like radar, incredible code-breaking machines, and, of course, it all ended with the creation of the single most destructive weapon ever imagined, the atomic bomb. But the war's true cost, its deepest horror, goes way beyond the battlefield. You had the Holocaust, the systematic industrial-scale murder of millions of European Jews and so many others. And at the same time, the very idea of a front line disappeared, as massive bombing campaigns leveled entire cities, deliberately targeting civilians and bringing the horror of war to everyone. We need to just stop for a second and look at this number. 6 million. That's the estimated number of Jewish men, women, and children murdered during the Holocaust. It's a number that represents a crime so evil, it has to serve as a warning for all time. So let's look at how all of this fighting finally came to a stop, and how the end of this war was really the beginning of the modern world we live in right now. The end came pretty quickly, all things considered. In Europe, the Allies from the West and the Soviets from the East were closing in on Berlin. With defeat certain, Hitler took his own life, and Germany surrendered just days later. But the war in the Pacific was still raging, until the US dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, which led to their surrender and, finally, the end of the war. And when the dust settled, the world was a completely different place. The United Nations was created, hoping to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But a new kind of conflict was already starting, as the USA and the Soviet Union became 2 rival superpowers. This was the beginning of the Cold War. The old world was gone, and a new one was taking shape. And that quote really nails it. The absolute devastation of the old world gave birth to a new one, a world that would be defined for decades by this tense face-off between 2 global giants. And that brings us to the end, and to a final question for you to think about. When you look back at everything, the causes, the unbelievable cost, and everything that came after, what are the most important lessons from this war that we absolutely, positively cannot afford to forget today?
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and join Team Historical to uncover more stories from history.